Charleston is South Carolina's oldest and largest city, and it played a vital role in the development of the United States in its early years. The Charleston harbor was a major hub for import and export. It financially enriched the city during its colonial days, but also made it ripe for ambush and plundering from notorious pirates, like Blackbeard. After the Revolutionary War, Charleston traded its financial stability for bankrupt morals, becoming one of the largest slave trading ports in the world. These actions culminated with the infamous first shots of the American Civil War at Fort Sumter, right in the heart of the Charleston harbor. With pirates, slaves, and wars bloodying the waters of the Holy City's history, is it any wonder it's one of America's most haunted cities? Join us as we venture through some of Charleston's haunted locations and legends in this very special Tale from the Tour, Hometown Hauntings edition. Charleston has been around long enough to accumulate its own stories and legends. They are perfect for telling around the campfires on cool autumn nights, when flickering flames stretch looming shadows. Though one tale in particular trumps any other in Charleston's storied arsenal, it may have a connection with one of the greatest writers of the macabre, Edgar Allan Poe. The story goes that long ago a soldier had fallen madly in love with a young and beautiful Annabel Lee, though her father disapproved. Late in the night, the two lovers would meet in secret in the cemetery, far away from the peering eyes of Annabel's father. But their fairy tale came to an end when the young soldier was sent to be stationed elsewhere. Annabel Lee became distraught after seeing her love leave. She then became sick with a terrible bout of yellow fever, and then she died. News of his lover's demise reached the soldier, and he hurried back to attend the funeral. But the father, still spiteful of the young man, made sure that he would never know where Annabel Lee was buried. To this day, the grave remains unmarked, though some believe her to be buried at the Unitarian Church graveyard in Charleston. Over the years, many visitors have encountered the apparition of a young woman roaming the graveyard at night for her lost love. But more importantly, people believe that it is this story that inspired Edgar Allan Poe's last completed poem before he died. Titled Annabel Lee, the work was about eternal love. There is no concrete evidence that this Charleston legend inspired the horror writer, although it's curious that Poe himself was stationed in Charleston when he was in the army in 1927, and the poem does describe a kingdom by the sea. Whatever the truth may be, Poe made sure that it would be uttered nevermore. Macabre poetry isn't the only deadly art that the Holy City has to offer. One of the city's most haunted places is where, ironically, you'll find the most life, and that is the Dock Street Theater. The original Dock Street Theater opened in 1736, at a different spot than the current one stands. Unfortunately, its run was cut short when the building burned to the ground in 1740, during the Charleston Fire, but as always, the show must go on. Another theater was built and remained open until 1780, when construction began on the Planter Hotel, which would see itself housing a much grander theater. When the hotel finally opened its doors in 1809, it was host to many renowned theater troupes from all over the country. One of the more famous, or perhaps infamous, actors to grace the stage was Junius Brutus Booth, father of actor turned assassin John Wilkes Booth, the man who shot Abraham Lincoln. Some people believe that Junius haunts the theater, despite him having few ties to it. However, it was reported that he once nearly killed the hotel manager in a blind fury when he was there in the 1830s. It seems that when it comes to the Booth family, the apple may not have fallen far from the tree. When the Civil War ravaged South Carolina, the Planter Hotel was left neglected and in ruins until the 1930s. President Roosevelt's Works Progress Administration helped create jobs by renovating and restoring the dilapidated hotel into the Dock Street Theater that is seen today. Perhaps the most well-known spirit that is said to haunt the stage of the Dock Street Theater is Nettie, whose apparition has been seen wearing a tattered red dress. Her story is filled with tragedy, as all good ghost stories are. Nettie was a country girl who moved out to Charleston in the 1840s and sought to live out the high life and marry a wealthy Southern gentleman. But it turned out that even the spry young age of 25 was considered too old for the refined men of Charleston at the time. So, using what little money she had left, she bought the prettiest and most expensive red dress in the city and began courting wealthy men at the Porter Hotel to make ends meet. However, she was not very discreet in her transactions, and soon the town and every man in it caught wind of her promiscuous line of work. She became an outcast and penniless. One night, during a terrible storm, dejected and bitter, Nettie climbed to the top of the Planter Hotel and cursed the city of Charleston. It was at that moment a lightning bolt struck her dead. The holy city had answered her wicked prayer. For being named the Holy City, Charleston seems to manifest quite a bit of tragedy and wickedness. There is perhaps no local site more wicked than the one built to house the city's most corrupt, the old Charleston Jail. The jail was built in 1802 and served the city until 1939, when it locked its wrought iron doors for the last time. But before the jail was even built, the land was used as a poorhouse, a hospital, and a workhouse for slaves. The jail had been home to many criminals throughout its time, from Civil War prisoners to early 19th century pirates. But perhaps the most notorious inmate was Lavinia Fisher, considered by many to be America's first female serial killer. She and her husband John were the owners of the 6 Mile Wayfarer House, located just 6 miles from the outskirts of Charleston. Rumors had been swirling for a while that those who booked a room at the inn never checked out, but the law never had any real proof to make an arrest. The stories claimed that the couple would lure traveling businessmen to their inn, feed them dinner, and serve them poisoned tea, leaving them tired and weak. Once the drugged men went to bed, the couple would murder them in their sleep and steal their possessions. The two had been running this lethal scam for a while, and they may have been able to continue this for the rest of their lives if it weren't for David Ross and John Peoples, the only 2 men ever to escape the Fisher's wrath. David Ross was part of a vigilant mob looking to clean up crime in the area where the Fishers resided. As the mob returned to town one night, Ross stayed behind to scout the 6 Mile Wayfarer House. It was there that he was ambushed and captured by the Fishers. He frantically pleaded with Lavinia to let him go, to no avail. She wrapped her hands around his throat, but miraculously he managed to break free and jump through the window. The other man, John Peoples, almost became a victim like many of the others. The only thing that saved him was not drinking his tea. He seemed to be the only wealthy man who wasn't fond of it. So, instead of the Fishers pouncing on a weak and defenseless man, they were surprised to find an alert and strong one, fending off their attacks. Both men would alert the police of the Fishers' crimes. Soon the couple were arrested and imprisoned at the old Charleston jail to be hanged. The husband's pleas for forgiveness fell on deaf ears. Lavinia only had this to say: "If you have a message you want to send to hell, give it to me, and I'll carry it." It's believed that their spirits still linger in the old jail to this day, perhaps hoping for another wealthy visitor to step through the iron doors. Legends and stories like these are what help keep our history and ancestors alive. They are a part of a city's culture. They are its essence. They show when it comes to hometown hauntings, the truth may be stranger than fiction.